And we will try to screw it up less next time, although we can't possibly screw it up as badly as the city is.
Well, that worked well.
It did. It was pretty good. I like that intro.
It was very frustrating on my end that it was, pausing and stuff. Anyways.
Was it pausing? Maybe just you saw pausing. I didn't see any pausing.
Oh, good. Hopefully it wasn't trash. Anyways, welcome to the This Week in Worcester podcast. I am Tom Marino, editor of This Week in Worcester. I'm here with Mr. Late John Edward Keogh. He is executive producer of Managed J Media. He is president of Hollywood Film Group. He is a contributor to This Week in Worcester. He is late today.
I am late today. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
I have a lot of stuff going on that
I understand.
I can't talk about.
I understand. How dare you? It was an eventful, again, it feels like the 97th time in a row, an eventful city council meeting last week.
That's how we do it in Worcester. We don't mess around. We just have eventful city council meetings. We get it done around here. Oh, wait, we don't get it done. We just have events.
And vote to file. So what would seemingly be the conclusion to this saga about the ceasefire resolution in Gaza. Of course, I know a lot of people say this is stupid. This is the business of Worcester. They did these things fairly frequently, and until this one, then it became an issue. But there has been some stuff here in the last several months that have led to this situation, but certainly the rules seem to change really quickly when this was proposed. It was rejected in October. The ACLU sent a letter that said you've been naughty, and so they put it on the agenda for this past Tuesday, and then voted to file and didn't even give it an up or down.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts about this are like percolating all over the place. Like how do we process this? I know I've heard from a lot of folks in the I guess the greater Worcester Jewish community that were not there that night and are against this petition. And then we heard, but there was a lot of folks there from the local Worcester Jewish community that are for the petition, right? And the thing that really struck me, and it continues to strike me, is Councilor Bergman's testimony that night that if the petition had been written differently, right? So it had only called for the to stand against the pain and suffering of the Palestinian people, that it might have been the same as his petition. And then it kind of indicating like maybe he would have voted for it or would have been less likely to vote for it to file or something. It was like a thing. And what really struck me is that, well, he could have amended it. He could have filed a motion to amend right then and there. And so what that statement ends up being to me is that there's a group of people who have decided that they have taken a specific position, and no matter what people are going to do, doesn't matter the legality of the petition, it doesn't matter the moral certainty of the position, it doesn't matter anything, that because they've been told to not vote for it, they're going to do whatever they can to not vote for it. That's what I heard. And that's what I thought about all week. He was never going to vote for it, no matter what, because in his mind, it's some attack on something. But I keep reading the petition, Tom, over and over again, the 4 tenets of this petition, and I don't know who isn't against those things. I mean, who isn't for those tenets, right? Like, why wouldn't you be for those tenets? Whether you're on one side or the other, which it's really difficult to understand in my mind how there could be a side when there is in fact things happening, right? Like, isn't that like, shouldn't you like, well, why would you be on the side of this? And so then I've read, and obviously Facebook is the land where Worcester apparently goes to talk. And so like I've seen things where it's like this 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 petition is the talking points of Hamas. And I searched far and wide, Tom, and I could find nowhere where Hamas called for the release of the Israeli hostages. Nowhere. And not one place, right? And I have not found one place where Hamas, the official Hamas, right, has called for a ceasefire. They haven't, right? So the right wing part of this thing, whether it's right wing on one side or the other, nobody wants the fighting to stop. They want it to continue on forever. And they've proved that for 70 years, and they've really proved that for even further back than that, right? So it's disingenuous to say that because that's not true. But yet people will get up and make those statements, and it blows my mind. And so I find myself truly disheartened because I feel like the only way to rectify this thought process, and not necessarily just this particular petition, will be you'd have to have an entire changeover of the city council, and then it would still take 4 years past that in two more cycles to really be able to root out the thought process from city administration, because you'd have to change over all kinds of people, and I just wonder, who's willing to take on that task, who's truly willing to take on that task, because I don't think it can be done by just a couple people. It needs to be done by a huge coalition, and I just it so made me feel a little down, and I carried it throughout the week, and then people made me mad on Facebook, and then I yelled at them.
I don't know. That was taking it a little further than I think was necessary. I think this is really simple, honestly. Nothing good comes from this for them. Those on city council, besides the people that were openly supportive of this. Of the 6 that voted to file, let's say, nothing good comes from this. There's no way to play this that's good. And I wish that folks that just kind of got up and spoke their mind, spoke from the heart, whatever, and tried to put into words why they're making the decision they were making. But nothing good comes from that.
No.
Right? A bunch of people are going to hate you, and if you don't do it, and if you don't go all in for either side, you might end up with everybody hating you.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, but that's the thing. That like political binary where you have to choose and you can't possibly. I just reject that thinking, and I think it's nonsensical, because in the end, listen, when the 6 people who voted against the petition, when Ray Mariano comes out and says that they were wrong, that something has gone wrong. Something has deeply shifted in the soul of our world when Ray Mariano basically said that if you read go read it. I never say this ever.
I didn't read it. I'm shocked. I didn't know this. I didn't read
Mariano's article in the Telegram and Gazette, where Ray Mariano basically says that the 6 counselors who voted against the petition are dumber than a 6th grader. That's what he said. He said that they're all dumber than a 6th grader. And it's an epic, abject takedown and a multi-pronged betrayal probably from many of the counselors. And and he's 100% right, because it's just ridiculous. But his basis on it isn't because he supports the petition. He does, but mostly because he feels like they put themselves in the situation where they needed to have a vote, and so he thinks the motion to file is devastating, which I agree. I agree that is the abject highest level of cowardice that we've seen in a long time, because you basically just won't even give people their hearing. And you could give them the hearing and just let them. Now, if they voted against that, at least you can say you voted against it, but you didn't. You did it on a technical procedural item, and I think that the ACLU has a case to be made, that they could sue the city anyways, because they didn't give it a full vote. They filed procedurally, and so that might not be fair, right? So like, and that I'm basing that on Councilor Bergman's thoughts that this petition was somehow materially different in his words, because it was asking other governments to do stuff. Problem with that is, Tom, it's a non-binding resolution, so it can't actually ask other governments to do anything. It just suggests it. So there's no legal standing of the resolution if it was forwarded and the council voted positively. So legally speaking, his argument is moot, and the ACLU probably has a big foot to stand on. And a big thing about this is that this current Supreme Court, the makeup of this current Supreme Court, has voted. Some of the conservatives have voted in cases like this against municipalities across the United States. In particular, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett have regularly sided with groups of people who have gone against municipalities when there's been like one group versus the other. So I think that there's a chance that we could lose a bunch of money now, too. So I wonder if the city really thought that through. Again, I question the legal department's ability to do research, to really look into these cases and find out what's wrong or what's not wrong. So I think that not only did they make the wrong decision, clearly and distinctly the wrong decision, morally and all that, but I also think they exposed the city to further damage based on this decision.
So I don't know. That seems like such a little different. I mean, it's not a little difference, but I don't know. That seems like a stretch to me. Look, they allowed people to have their say, and they allowed everybody that wanted to speak. I think that was probably the important part. It's unfortunate that they kind of had to be bullied into doing it, but I do think that's the important part. The motion to file was, I just take it, just vote yes or no. I don't understand. I mean, I guess if you motion to file, if you're voting for a motion to file, you're essentially voting against it. But it gives you wiggle room rather than just taking a position.
But I don't see. That's what I'm saying. I don't know that it gives them wiggle room, because in the initial petition, they didn't have there was no motion to file. It was moved to council basically by a councilor. This was a citizen's petition, not a councilor's position. So the city council has taken up a much different stand here. This was generated by the mayor originally. And then the lead person became Mo Bergman through a series of moves in emails, which have been now released to the public, right? So Mo Bergman wasn't the originator of this; it was Mayor Petty, and then Mo Bergman became the lead sponsor, and Mayor Petty sponsored it back. But so this was an intentional, process on their part. This petition was a citizen's petition; it was not generated by a councilor, and I really question. The council's position, and there's other councils that could have put on a different petition, but they haven't. Right? They haven't.
They haven't. I mean, I don't know. I think really the point is that if the city council took a position now that at least the mayor and George Russell have said was a mistake, why is it not up for reconsideration?
Well,
Let's fix
not
it.
just that. Can't they rescind? Can they not rescind the vote that they took a year ago? Is that legal? Can they unresolution the first resolution?
I
Or
wonder.
is
I mean, well, yeah. So I don't know what it would be procedurally. I would imagine they could bring it up for a reconsideration and then vote against it.
Well, but we know that that's not going to happen, right? So because the same people are going to vote for it, probably in the same lines that happened the last time. Maybe there'll be one more vote because someone was absent that night. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it looks like. But to me, if Mayor Petty's saying that it was a wrong decision, shouldn't he then bring it back, however, whatever procedure he has to, and take it
Yeah,
off?
But
Not just
that
that one.
seems
Any national issue that they've ever put up there.
well. No, I think if you want to get technical, I think it actually goes. What is their jurisdiction? Their jurisdiction is the city. So let's go back and find every time a state bill was supported, for example. That's outside your jurisdiction.
Yeah, I mean, like there was a something related to locking people up for certain crimes that they supported at one point. There was another petition for I don't know, moratorium on building prisons and all kinds of stuff. There's been a bunch of these things, and so if none of those are like all of those should be out. So that means they can no longer pontificate on these issues and make themselves seem like they're doing something. And so now, I mean, if that's the case, then let's really get back into it. Let's really talk about the business of the city of Worcester. And so, I want to talk about things, and I want to figure out how to talk about different things in different ways. I mean, so I filed a bunch of petitions after that. All of them got denied by the. I haven't sent them to you yet. All of them got denied by the city clerk. And I'm probably preparing to sue the city because there's a bunch of legal formulations that I think they're wrong about. We have a new city solicitor, by the way. I don't know if you remember that.
I did see that. Yep.
We talked Alexandra. Yeah. So, by the way, I had asked, and I see that the person is watching right now. I had asked an important city employee that I had heard that Alexandra was going to be appointed the next city solicitor, and I brought it up on this show like 8 weeks ago. And I was told, no, whenever, like right after Trainer had retired, right? And I was told no. And then, of course, what did the city administration do yet again, Tom? Yet again, who did they provide their statement to before the press release made it out to everybody else?
You notice I didn't cover it.
Right? I mean, what's with that, dude? Like, they love the Telegram and Gazette, man. And I gotta say, the TNG staff is much reduced, so I don't want the TNG staff to think I'm against them. But man, do they love one outlet? Gotta makes you think.
It's like
Makes you
I
think.
won't say that.
Also, the U.S. Attorney's Office, Josh Levy, given a little random interview to reporters that was unannounced. It was only to certain things. Again, it just kind of shows even they really don't care about anybody but the Telegram and Gazette. And so that's what we're up against. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean that's fine.
Annoying though.
So yeah, it was I would call it going out with a whimper. This the approach to this ceasefire petition. I get people that say it doesn't belong there, but this is something that happens in cities across the country on various issues. It is actually has some influence. How much is debatable, but I mean, if a bunch of cities in one federal reps district is doing this, right? That's sending a message, right? So it's not like it has no value whatsoever, and it's just ceremonial only. Although it is that, but there is some influence, however little it might be.
Yeah.
I wish that the city would have figured out a different way to go about this, rather than we're just not going to do this anymore all of a sudden. Whether it be some sort of subcommittee thing or something, right, where people could get their say, that it wasn't a full council meeting, but a way to do these things procedurally that will enable, this interaction with city government that people want to have.
Yeah. Councilor King had made a statement about the voting for the petition being wind at the back of federal officials. So, the city of Worcester supporting the delegation. I understand. I think it was a good rhetorical flourish by him, but I don't know that that has anything either, because I think that the establishment Democrats are going to continue to supply arms as they always have, and that the establishment Republicans, and the Uniparty will continue to do that. So that, like, those things, as far, like, I don't know that there's any difference making there. I don't think they care, and I also don't think at this point, because of the way the government has been formulated from the last election, that it would really make any difference. So I appreciate what he said, and I get it. But my question would then be, would there be any accountability on the backside? So, like, when Senator Markey does campaigning for Mayor Petty this year, is someone going to ask Senator Markey, so you don't support a ceasefire, which he's made many public comments saying he does, but would it then, you know what I mean? And same thing with Congressman McGovern. Is he going to run for Mayor Petty like he has many, many times in the past? Is someone going to ask him that same question? Is it going to affect fundraising at all for any of those six? And I don't think it will. And then there's really no real true accountability unless it affects fundraising.
I hope I would just say the people that signed that, the 1,500 people that signed that petition, and certainly the people that showed up at City Council once or if not twice, I hope to see at the polls.
Yeah, I hope the coalition continues to grow as far as common sense, humanitarian based thinking in the city, and that the petitioners get together and go vote against the people that voted against them. I hope they do. And I think that's the only way. I hope this issue is important to people. I really, you heard what I said. You were right after me. I have to support anything that is against death, and this reign is for death, and I don't like that. I don't want to be a part of a culture of death. I don't want to support weapons of war being sent anywhere. I don't want weapons of war to even exist. Now, I know some people out there will be like, "Oh, you're naive. Weapons of war are always going to exist." Why? Well, like, what? Why does it have to be like that? Why do you have to be like that? And usually that means that person has some kind of violence in them that they need to get out, and they need to impose themselves on other people, and so they just can't ever get past it. But I'm anti-war as far as I can go, and I don't believe in harming people. But at this point, like, some of the things that have been said are just nonsense. I mean, Steve Schimmel, another local guy, he got up and said that the numbers, were all wrong. Okay, fine. The numbers are arguable. But when you present to Steve and to folks like him, the numbers the IDF themselves publish on their website, which is in the tens of thousands, 30, I think the last time I looked was 38,000 non-combatants. That's what the IDF says. Are they lying? So, like, it's propaganda from Hamas, but it's not propaganda from the IDF. Like, how do you deal with that? You know what I mean? And then they do have a number of people that they say are combatants only, and that really seems to be the big argument. Is like, all right, this is a group of combatants, and then there's a justification that because there's this many combatants, and those combatants are in areas where the non-combatants also are. When we kill the combatants, it's okay for us to kill the non-combatants. That's I actually heard someone say that in a press conference, and Anthony Blinken, our Secretary of State, has made this. He said similar things like 5-6 times now, where he's like, well, hey, it's not our fault that our bombs get sent to be blown up at a place where someone has put both combatants and non-combatants. And just think about that process. Here in the United States, if you're a soldier, you go to a base, you train at a base, and then you go somewhere overseas. And so obviously your wife and kids don't go with you to, or your husband and kids or whatever, go with you to where you are. And so they're not at risk. In this particular case, the fighting is in their homes and in the streets of the places that they live. So the argument is completely nonsensical, right? Because you're saying that they should be blamed for living where they live, and because the person happens to be a fighter for that particular cause. And I'm not saying that that's a good cause or not. I'm just saying they happen to be one, and they also happen to have a family. The family is somehow responsible for our bomb. which is just like, how did you even get there? I don't even know how you do that. It's their fault. It's like a little kid's fault that he got blown up by an American bomb that was
We
made
see,
in Seattle.
you see, and if you want to ignore the dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of psychotic comments from people in high-ranking positions in the Israeli government, if you want to ignore all that, what they also did was, if you're part of the government, part of administering services, right? Whatever there was of a government in Gaza, that makes you Hamas. So if you were a police officer, for example, not in the armed military wing of Hamas, but you're just like a street cop, you're Hamas. If you signed the wedding certificates, you're Hamas, right? And so then if anyone is then with amongst civilians, well, but they're Hamas, right? It's this just scope creep of the way they classify things. But nonetheless, the point I made was, I thought about going all full history lesson, and then I was just like, yeah, it's not going to matter. But there's a convicted terrorist supporter who is serving as the Minister of National Security in the Israeli government. I thought, after 9/11, when George Bush told us that, the president at the time told us that, if you ally with terrorists, you're a terrorist. Well, when Netanyahu named a convicted terrorist to his cabinet, isn't that aligning with a terrorist?
Well, but then they're saying that conviction then they invalidate the thing that invalidates their argument. So anytime something happens, you have to reverse and invalidate. So there's you never actually say anything, right? So it's like, well, that terrorist conviction doesn't really stand because those judges, they come from a different thinking process, and so therefore it's not the same. So then you never really can have anything. There's no real true standpoint that you ever can be on, and that's what they do. And so the argument is that they just want to get through the conversation so they don't have to talk to you anymore. It doesn't matter how many valid points you make.
That is fairly typical on this topic. Is like, as soon as you display that you've actually done some stuff, you studied the issue at all, people want to get out of the conversation quickly. It's kind of funny. That's not everybody by any means. There are certainly people that all sorts of people that know all sorts of stuff about this topic. But the short version is, the Minister of National Security in Israel is basically a follower of the ideology of Meir Kahane. Meir Kahane grew up in Brooklyn, moved to develop some really disgusting and hateful ideas there. Moved to Israel, started a party called Koch, which he was the only person ever elected from that party. Failed a few times, and he was elected once. Just him, right? One seat. And then the next election, they banned him from running. And then the election after that, they banned him from running. And the election after that, they banned him from running, banned his party forever, and declared it a terrorist organization. And that was in like the 80s, early 90s, I think, is when they banned it outright and designated it a terrorist organization. And so there was like, that's how fringe of an ideas this guy had. And that was 30 and 40 years ago. And now one of his followers is the Minister of National Security.
Yeah. So another like the line of logic that is built on some of these arguments that like blows my mind is, if you disagree with the government position, then you're an anti-Semite in this particular case, right? So you're against Jews and Judaism if you are against the government. But the problem with that is that the government is made up of a coalition that in many cases voted against Netanyahu and his party, right? But then, the way that their elections are formed are different than ours. They then negotiate these coalitions, and then there's enough votes to make a thing. So legitimately, within the coalition are people that don't agree with the government, right? And so, but they're part of the coalition that is currently running the government. They have different ranks and different, positions related to that. That makes them anti-Semitic too, because they don't agree with everything that he says? Or is it only if you disagree with harming people that you are therefore anti-Semitic? Which is what you get accused of. I've gotten accused of it this week already. Because I support the petition, I'm somehow against Israel, which doesn't make any sense at all. because I'm not against, nothing in the resolution is against Israel. One releases the hostages and wants an end to a war, by the way, that is harming people in Israel. It's not like soldiers aren't dying for their side as well. And so that's now it's definitely not close to the numerical value that we see on the other side, but it's definitely harming people. And I'm always against harming people. And so, for those of you who are like conservative, I guess, which is just a word that doesn't really mean anything, it never has. But anyways, conservatives and liberals, blah, 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 blah. If you're here in the United States and you voted for Trump in the last election, right? And you which means you materially disagreed with Joe Biden, does that make you anti-American? Right?
No, God.
No.
I mean, it's all. Look, listen. A lot of now, with anti-Semitism is real. It's a horrific and insidious form of bigotry,
but
for sure.
Not what this is.
But what we've seen since last October is, in a lot of cases, not all, and there have been certainly folks in the Jewish community have faced awful things as well during this time.
Sure.
But I mean, in the public sphere, in the media sphere, in the the exploitation of anti-Semitism for political purposes has really been horrific, and it really actually does damage to people, to the horror of when actual bigotry, anti-Semitism is happening.
Yeah, I think,
and it's really disgusting.
Yeah, I think it allows people who are truly like that, truly racist, to get away
to hide
with
in politics. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that there may be folks right here in our own city council that are openly or hiddenly, those ways, and yet they're allowed to hide in open sight and not have to deal with the consequences of their decision making, because there really is no actual. There's just no real consequences, right? Like there's none. You just get to say whatever you want and then hide who you really are, and that just doesn't make any sense to me. It just, like, I'm trying to think through what exactly can I do. I one of the petitions that I submitted that was denied was, I asked them to condemn. I just used Councilor Bergman's formulation: condemn pain and suffering in Palestine, and the city clerk rejected it for being repetitive. But Mo Bergman said that the petition that they rejected wasn't that, right? I made a different one, but the city clerk says it's repetitive, which of course was formulated by the city solicitor's office. So then there's really just no way to get through, right? It's just like, oh, it's repetitive, and then you can motion. I could do a motion for reconsideration this Tuesday if I got it in on time by noon Monday, right? That's the rule, but it would be denied by the city solicitor because it's the same, in materially the same. So that's what I mean. They were never going to change their mind, no matter what. Like, you could rewrite it in a different way without the requests for adherence to the law of the United States, which is what all the petition says, right? Or just ignore all that and just say we're against people dying.
It's too much for us to ask the government to suggest to the federal government that it follow its own laws. That's outside. That's too outside the scope.
So I have another thought, another petition. Like, if you filed a petition that just said the petitioner asked the city council to condemn babies dying, right? Like that, like just that. Not mention what kind of baby, right? Can't mention that. Can't mention where the babies are, right? But just babies dying. Would that be outside the purview of the council? Like, I'm against. I'm gonna take a really tough stand here for everybody right now that's watching online, and I'm gonna say I am against babies dying. I don't know where you stand on that, but I'm anti-babies dying. And does that mean that am I bad for that? Is that somehow bad? Tell me. Like, get in the chat and let me know if I violated some special precept by saying I don't want children to die. I would prefer the children get to live and become maniacs like me in their 40s. Like let them have fun and do their thing, just like my nonsensical self has done. Like, what the heck are you doing? Like, okay, like, let's make it really difficult. I'm against what? Name a thing that you're against. And like they can't say anything like that. So then you can never take any. So then all the like unofficial proclamation stuff, those are all outside of the purview, right? You can't
Yep.
bestow
Yep.
like an official, the city council commends, this person for doing this or this. No, that's outside of the purview because it's only city business that you can deal. You can't deal with nothing else. City business.
No
As
more. What we just had? They just did one a few weeks ago for
can't do that.
is it
Can't do it.
Albanian National Day? I'm sorry that I'm forgetting what it was exactly. It was Albanian National Day, or I forget what
Outside
it
of
was.
the purview, right? You can't do any of those.
Yep. Nope.
But
They
they
will.
run on that. That's how they get paid, Tom. That's how they get their money for their campaigns. They put in that they did this, and then they get that thing. But they shouldn't be able to do that, right? That the Rule 11. Rule 11. Apparently the only rule that we follow in city council history. Rule 11 must be adhered to the letter, folks, to the letter. Right. So if your pothole is on the Leicester border of Route 9, I'm sorry, it's outside of the purview. So we can't deal with anything. It's so stupid. And like it just when you what's that reductio ad absurdum, to throw a little Latin at you. Do you remember that from high school? I don't know how many kids took Latin in high school like I did, but that was part of the understanding of logic, is that you needed to reduce to the absurd. So reductio ad absurdum. Take the argument, stretch it out to its worst possible point. And if it's absurd at the end, then the argument itself is absurd because it can be reduced to that point. And that's what happens with this. You reduce it in any direction. You end up reducing it to absurdity, and that's all that it is. And if Ray Mariano agrees with me, again, the world has gone, dude. The world has turned. Right? It is truly over if me and Ray are in agreement.
So that'd be something. So
good point,
that is probably the end of that topic. That saga.
Yeah.
They could have been. And the other thing is, they could have just dealt with it in October, like they should have, and it wouldn't be so ridiculous. If they took it up in October and filed it, it probably wouldn't be so absurd. But the way they dodged it for 3 months, and then. I mean, granted, there was there was only a few meetings in between that. I don't mean to overblow it, but, in the end, it didn't come up again until January. It was first introduced in October. They could have brought it up. If they had just taken it up and filed it, then it probably wouldn't be such a big deal. And not that it is a big deal. I don't know how many people care, but it wouldn't look so absurd. Also, quickly wanted to just shameless self-promotion. I have a piece up under the column section on the homepage. 6 ways to reform the police department. I'm just going to go through the literally bullets. There's a whole background of what's been proposed here and whatnot, and then I made 6 suggestions. First is release all gag orders. People that are under an obligation to not to discuss the case. We should be talking to those people. They should be able to speak if they want to. It's time to stop hiding this stuff. It's time to, if people wish to speak, we should be listening to their experiences and trying to learn something from them instead of pretending like these things are just one-offs. Throw blobs away. The Bureau of Professional Standards. Look, people shouldn't investigate themselves. That's dumb. It's just dumb. And it puts a pressure on the police department they don't need. Do it externally. And that externally is establish something that looks like an inspector general, a quasi-independent investigator inside city government that would take on any such things inside city government, including, accusations of misconduct by police officers, right? And it's done outside the department. We're not asking people to investigate their co-workers. Again, that's just stupid.
Right.
Remove Worcester Police from civil service. Civil service is a standardized test. A bubble test cannot tell you if someone is going to be a jerk to everyone that they encounter, or worse, right? The civil service system puts a way too much emphasis on this silly bubble test. Of course, you need to know laws and such. There's a lot of knowledge that officers need to have. For sure, I'm not saying that tests are inadequate. Shouldn't happen. Tests can happen, but it just forces the state forces the city into putting way too much reliance on that stupid test. And lastly, pardon me, two more things. Rebuild the termination process. Long story short, it's impossible for police officers to get fired at this point. It's the process is long and expensive, and that's why they overuse last chance agreements. So we need to be able to fire people when they deserve it. That doesn't mean they can't have a process, but the process we have is insane. And lastly, and I think we'll probably get some angry police officers, but if you actually read what I said, reforming the private details, the idea that we have people on this police department that are working their regular job and then working 20, 30, 40 hours on top of their 40 or 38 hours a week. That's crazy. That's insane. It's absolutely insane. So I mean, the obvious thing would be, at least when appropriate, for like just directing traffic and things like that, you go to flaggers. I also say in my piece that it's important that whatever cost savings come there should be dedicated toward improving early salary. When you first get hired, salary is not great. We don't want this to turn into bloodletting for the earnings of police officers, but at the same time, maybe having adequate time to spend with family or other recreation or taking care of your body and mind rather than working 40, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Maybe that'd be good. And maybe I'm sure would change the way that some folks, fatigue has a dramatic effect on your behavior. And if you're in hour 78 of that week and somebody doesn't want to listen, but hasn't really done anything wrong, or whatever it might be, right? Like your police officers are human beings. When fatigue causes poor decision making, changes in attitude, slower reaction time, etc., etc., etc. Right? People are tired. They're not as effective, and you can't tell me that these guys working 60, 70, 80 hours a week aren't tired. Of course they are. I work a lot, and I sit in this chair and grow sideways. My width increases. I'm not on my feet or dealing with God knows what that officers deal with. The many scenarios that officers deal with. It's insane.
Can we talk before we continue on? That, I appreciate you saying that. That was nice of you to say. Can we back down on the officers have the worst job in the history of the universe, and their lives are fraught constantly with stress, and oh my goodness, and there's just knock it off. I get it. There's this desire that we must recognize all police officers as heroes automatically because they put on the uniform. Nope, because a bunch of you are relatives of, and you got your job through nepotism. Whatever it is, what it is. Say what you want, but there's 7 sergeant officer combos right now, father-son combos in the Worcester Police Department. Nepotism is what nepotism does. So if you don't agree with me, I don't care. 1, 2. Not every officer faces the pressure daily of facing down death. Nope. You can't have Mayor Petty say that Worcester is one of the safest cities in America and also say that your lives are fraught with constant danger. Bullshit. I call bullshit on that. I don't want to hear that anymore. That's ridiculous. You can't. So then you're saying that Mayor Petty's wrong, right? Right. So you either he's right about one of the safest cities in America, or you are fraught with your constant life of danger that you're all saying, right? 2, you're paid very well. You are paid extremely well. Not bad, not nothing. Even a rookie police officer is doing pretty good for himself. And you have amazing job security. Amazing. As Tom said, and as in this article and all the articles that he's been writing over the past 2 years, you basically can do anything you want and not get fired, and up to and including have someone killed or have evidence planted on their body or whatever. You can get away with almost anything as a Worcester police officer. It is very rare that Worcester police officers are fired. In fact, it is so rare it doesn't match the average rate of police officers being fired nationally. It is below the national average for the rate of officers being fired. And so you basically have unlimited, unfettered job security at a level I can't even imagine. I got into a little tiff with Union Vice President of Police Police Officials 504, Anthony Petrone, over the past week. Got myself blocked from Worcester Politics 101, where I pointed out that he did not face discipline for doxing a 17-year-old girl and then having his buddy Wayne Griffin run around on the internet which led to death threats against that young girl and her family. I contend that Anthony Petrone did that while on duty. I have no evidence other than one person's statement that happened, but he was able to get away with that by just saying, "I'm sorry" to the family, which City Manager Batista negotiated that, which that should be something that was a red flag right there. He had to negotiate an apology to a young girl and her family who suffered death threats because Anthony Petrone made an absolutely abject false statement about this young girl. Why is that important? Why does it matter that he doesn't get fired? He is a literally elected leader of a police union in this city, and he faced no real life consequences for a crime. Now, I call it a crime. Other people don't, because it was never investigated. No one ever went in and looked and reviewed his behavior. His behavior has been hidden from the public. He got away with it right out in front of us all. Wayne Griffin, who lied and continued to dox it, sits in his little internet throne and does the same nonsense. Again, also not investigated. This little part of how it works is proof that your life is not that bad as a Worcester police officer. It ain't that bad. It's not that bad. If you get to do that, because if I did that or Tom did that, if I even post someone's address online right now, just let me post Tom's address. I know him. I could get in trouble for that, but you won't. So stop with not you, Tom. Stop with just this general wail of the hard life of the Worcester Police Department. Your life is not that bad. You're doing fine. And until you hold your own leaders accountable, and by the way, this to all my patrolman buddies who love to text during the show and say stupid shit to me all the time, let me tell you this. You voted for Anthony Petrone, who is a bully against a 17-year-old girl, so you're all cowards. That's my position about you. You like that man as a leader of you. That's what you do. That dude is your leader. And all of you politicians who support that, you support the abuse of a 17-year-old girl because you never said anything about it publicly and you let him get away with it because he's still there. You could push him out. You 100% could, but you didn't. So you support it. You're complicit. You're all cowards. Sorry, but continue your list.
That was the end of the list.
That was really part of the list.
I would just point out that Mr. Keogh speaks for himself and himself alone.
This is my opinion. This is not Tom's opinion. But I publicly have taken the stand that Anthony Petrone should have been arrested for what he did. That he should have.
Wait a minute.
He committed a crime, Tom. In my opinion, he committed a crime.
No, he didn't. No,
well, so he orchestrated
because the laws are stupid, but
okay, well, no, but maybe the laws are stupid, Tom. But we have just watched a series of prosecutions at the national level where someone who is the leader of a group of people that did bad things can be held accountable. Yes or no? If you're a leader and your followers do bad things, you can be held accountable, is what we have heard talked about for years now, right? So, and I'm specifically referring to the January 6th thing, and we have had a series of prosecutions saying that President Trump or President-elect Trump, whatever, should be held accountable for his followers' behavior, which I agree. If you're a leader, you should be held to a higher standard. I agree with that. If your followers do something on your word, in this particular case, There is more evidence that this guy did something that led to people directly committing crimes against this family. They had death threats that were recorded. There's cell phone calls from people. There's Facebook messengers things. Fake accounts were created, all of which could have been investigated and never was. Why? Why do you think it wasn't investigated? I contend to you that it would have gone back to a bunch of police officers. So his followers committed crimes, Tom. So he should have been arrested for his words and actions. Now, did Wayne Griffin amplify it beyond what Mr. Petroni wanted to happen? Sure. So Mr. Griffin should be arrested too. The two of them led to death threats against a little girl. They should not have a job. They should not have a living. They should have to pay for that. Just like somebody who robs a CVS in their minds has to pay for the rest of their lives, those two men should have records and should suffer consequences for their behaviors. John Edward Keogh's opinion, because that's the kind of standard that I hold my leaders to. If he's a leader, that's the standard I believe you should hold him to.
So those are the things. I hope you read the piece. Those are the things that I think would make a lot of sense. Of course, it'd be a lot of objection to them, but there's there are means by which look, I don't want to drastically impact. I mean, if you're a patrolman and you're making $250K, well, yeah, I guess I don't think that that's probably a thing that's sustainable. When we care about officers and having time off to be human beings, so I mean, if that's your expectation, you think you should make $250K, well, I guess we disagree. But I want to see people have more time off, because I think that will improve performance and attitude, and because when you get rest, you're a better person. I know I am. So anyway, I hope it's kind of long. There's an argument for all my points, and I hope you read it. You had something else as well, John?
Yes, I did. So this is just a general thing about Worcester politics, right? And so I've been thinking about this a lot and just trying to formulate independent thought, right? Because we have a lot of folks who express their opinions, and there's like a scattershot kind of thing happening in the city of Worcester, where we have all these coalitions that don't really coalesce, right? So, and we have a pattern that has gone back 30 or 40 years, maybe even longer, where kind of the same interests are repeatedly elected, right? There's some sprouts here and there where an individual person overcomes and gets elected and has a little bit of a time in the sun, but generally speaking, Worcester politics has operated exactly the same way for decades, and I don't know that anybody could make a argument that it has changed at all, other than technology. We've all gotten older, the city's gotten older, and the population has shifted. But other than that, the politics has continued to maintain the same trajectory, right? Which is entrenched interest. And the entrenched interest, interestingly enough, is high-level government control of the day-to-day lives of the individual citizens of the city of Worcester. We have a huge government here in the city of Worcester that has massive power over the day-to-day lives. The municipality exercises huge authority that isn't always in place in the rest of the country. Okay, so both the conservative sect and the liberal sect continually come together to support this high-level governmental control. It's unbelievable. So they control everything about our lives.
Can we get some examples?
Sure, absolutely. For example, they control all economic development in the city of Worcester. It has to go through an approval process directed by the city. And in fact, if you were to be like you, Tom, let's say you became independently wealthy tomorrow, you won the lottery, and you wanted to buy, I don't know, how about the parcel that Madison Properties abandoned in Polar Park? let's just deal with that. They're not paying their rent anymore. So you could go over there and you want to buy that property. It would take you years to get that purchase, even if you had the cash. Even if you said, "Hey, city, I'll give you 10 million bucks cash, cold hard cash, and I'm going to build a property there, and I'm going to pay my taxes. I'm going to pay the assessed taxes on this property forever. I'm Tom Marino, and this is my story." It would still take you years to acquire and begin to develop that property, which is why part of the reason why the city reacted so upsetly towards Madison, even though they had no teeth in the message, is because they can't they can't recover the time that they invested in Madison properties, which so now the development process is kicked back X amount of years because that group failed. Mayor Petty and Manager Batista in their public statements said, "We're looking for new partners to help us develop these properties," but now the timeline has changed. The timeline has changed, right? So the reason why the timeline has changed is because there's a process where you have to go through to get approval. You can't just buy things unilaterally in this city, right? It's very, very difficult. A second example is landlords, right? So Tom, you did an investigative series, of like 2 years ago into some of the landlords and, failures and different things of different, investigations in the city. And it turns out a lot of these landlords are not actually residents of the city of Worcester. Wow, imagine that. That's kind of weird. And there's all these like shady things and corporations all over the place. Bill Shaner did a similar piece when the roof caved in on that other property. Like he tracked all those things down, right? So it wasn't just you. But to get in there, for you to buy a house, just to buy a triple decker, Tom, there is a huge, difficult process in the city that's controlled through the economic impact controlled through the government's policies, right? So it's hard to buy a building here because it costs so much. And it costs so much because of the terrible policies of the city of Worcester. They have control over almost everything. It's pretty amazing, right? And there's a bunch of other stuff. If you wanted to build a new property, the sprinkler laws are difficult. And yes, some of these policies are state level policies that the city can opt into or not, blah, 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 all those things. But what my point is that we do have high levels of government here in the city, and they're committed to it. They're committed to this mission that they know better than regular people. In the end, the overall message that I hear on a regular basis is, A, trust the experts. We trust the experts. We want you to trust the experts, and we know what's best for you. We know what's best for you, Tom. We know what's best for you, John. We know what's best for the huge population of folks from Ghana. We know what's best for the huge Hispanic population here. We know what's best for the large Vietnamese population here. We know what's best because we've been in charge for 50 years. But it turns out they don't know what's best. You want to know why? So this is my end to this argument. For 50 years, the city of Worcester has deteriorated. It's deteriorated in its buildings. It's deteriorated in its ability to get things done. It doesn't know how to snowplow anymore. The traffic system is bad. The lights don't work right all the time. The city is falling apart. We have a higher level of homelessness than we have ever had in our history. The amount of money that people make relative to cost has never had a wider gap. The folks that make the least are farther away from the people that make the most than they have ever been in history. So that is a track record of failure. The system of Worcester has failed for 50 years. They don't know what they're doing. And therefore, Tom, although there are individual people who deserve accolades, sure, the overall system is an abject, utterly provable, scientific, every level failure. And so the only way, in my opinion, to fix the city of Worcester truly is a complete and total overhaul of the entire apparatus, which means only two paths, Tom. Either everybody gets voted out and then the people who get voted in fire everybody else, or revolution. and revolution is not coming anytime soon. So the only solution is to vote them all out and fire everybody. So that's my thought process. Now I know I'm being extreme, and silly, but realistically, until the thought process that has ruled the city with an iron grip for decades about that they know best gets changed, nothing that you complain about on Worcester Political Dialogue, on Jack Murray's page over there, on Worcester Politics 101, Seven Hills Political Exchange, even the fool over at Red Metro, all the stuff that y'all complain about, none of it's ever going to change until you completely come together and replace them all with new people. That's it. That's
So
all I got.
I disagree with a wide portion of that.
Huh? Why what?
I disagree with a wide portion of that.
Okay.
Changing people out to change people out is, depends on what you get. Right? Depends on what you get.
I don't know it does. I don't know because no, I'm not. When I'm saying wipe it out, I mean there's plenty of people that told you there's individuals who deserve accolades. I just gave with you an award, one of the first TWIWIs of the history to City Councilor Atel. My goodness, Hajias, right? Who I have political disagreements with, but I consider her to be a person who cares about the people of the city of Worcester. And that's the kind of person. I don't know necessarily if there's many more public officials that really care about the people of Worcester. I don't know. And Lynn just made the point, charter review, that could be a component of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is to really change the system, you might have to replace the system. And that might mean that some things get swept out. Sometimes the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater. You know what I'm saying? Although I made a statement earlier in this program that I am against the killing of babies. So I'm anti-baby killing. Superintendent Monterez, home run for the city of Worcester. Home run. Smash hit home run for the city of Worcester.
Smash hit home run.
Smash hit home run. There's no doubt about that. Figure out how to pay her, keep her forever. Can you do it? I don't know. I don't know if you can I wouldn't. And by the way, if and when, if she leaves for another job somewhere else and gets $500,000, I'm not going to complain. She did a great job while she's been here, and maybe she's started to change the wheels in the school department, because there's many people in the school department, as we've seen from the vote totals, that think the old regime was the right regime, which is crazy. But you know what I mean? It's just crazy because, again, Tom, another system with provable data that it was an abject failure. Provable data, numbers you can look at, testimony, everything, all the aspects of making an argument against something was there. But at the time they said, trust the experts. They're the experts. And then they fired the expert because the expert was wrong. Sometimes experts are wrong. In fact, they continue to be wrong on a regular basis, especially when they can't take criticism without it being personal, or the response being, oh, you're against me, you're anti-me. No, I'm not an anti-Tomite. I love Tom Marino. He's one of my best friends in my entire life. I'm grateful to Jesus, and he doesn't even like Jesus. I'm grateful to Jesus for Tom, right? And I disagree with him all the time, but that does not make me an anti-Tomite, not at all. So, just disagreeing with someone doesn't make you anti them or what they're doing, right? You know what I mean?
I am neither for nor against Jesus. Just for the record, I am definitely not against. Definitely not against. Just not really for. If you're for him, I love that for you though, and I'm happy for you. It takes strength to have faith, and I don't have that. That strength muscle doesn't exist on me. I apologize.
This is the best show. Do you not know how good this show is, people? This show is epic. Share it to all your friends. Send it around the world.
So I do think that there are. I mean, you know that I have a lot of thoughts on this. I do think that there are, certainly structural problems with the way that this city government was constructed in its charter. Maybe it was good then. It's not good now. It is in hindsight. It is for now, not casting aspersions on those that wrote it, because that was 40 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what the system called for then. I just know that it is wildly out of date now. And so I do think that could help, but yeah, it is all about the people in office. And I mean, we saw in last week the chairperson of the Public Safety Committee, give interviews, release a statement saying, I couldn't possibly have taken up any of this stuff related to discipline, which is transparently false. And so it doesn't matter, I don't think, how much power that committee had. I think it's going to do what it's doing, which is not going anywhere near police discipline. So, it is what it is. But I do think that there are structural fixes that could happen that would make the thing at least make the people in those positions better positioned to make an impact and contribute in positive ways, on policy and a bunch of other things. But anyway, let's 106. I'm into what is the final question of the day, sir?
All right, so of course, all of you that have followed along with this lovely show, and if you've never been here before, you've reached the final part, the best part, and that is where I asked Tom Marino, that guy over there, or maybe he's over there. I don't know where your screen is. I don't know. I asked him about his favorite things, and we have covered so many of his favorite things, right? Over the year, we have covered food and we've covered music. We covered his favorite rapper of all time, which was very, very controversial. Very, very controversial.
It was.
Got a lot of people riled up. His favorite Christmas music, famous Christmas movie, all kinds of fun stuff. Candy, blah, 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 blah. Lots of stuff. Favorite Patriot was a recent one. What we haven't asked Tom is about a sport that kind of creeps into his language every once in a while. Every once in a while, Tom talks about hockey. And so I want to ask you tonight, Tom, Mr. Marino, who's your favorite Bruin of all time?
Oh, I mean, that's too complicated of a question. Like of all time, like ever?
Ever Bruin. One single Bruin. One.
Oh, I mean, you almost have to say Bobby Orr, but so my answer is Cam Neely.
Cam Neely
is my favorite of all time. I mean, so there's Orr, but he's like a god. If we're talking so Bobby Orr's a god, and then we're talking about the humans, okay? Yeah, probably Cam Neely. Close, very, very, very close behind. Very close second. Patrice Bergeron, who's like the perfect human being.
So my favorite Bruin of all time, for those of you following along in the chat, is PJ Stock. It's not even close. Do you remember PJ Stock?
Yes. He was God. I mean,
PJ Stock was the greatest enforcer, in my opinion, in the history of hockey.
No way.
He was like 4'6" and on skates, and he would fight anybody. He used to get tooled up all the time. One of the great losers in hockey fighting history, but he never, ever, ever backed down from the biggest giant things. And my favorite fight of all time between PJ Stock is with PJ Stock and Zdeno Chara when Chara was still on Ottawa, right? And he just wrecks him, just annihilates. Go watch it on YouTube. Go look up Chara versus PJ Stock. It was Chara, I think it was his second season. Chara was 7-1 on skates, and PJ Stock is this little dude, and Chara just grabs him and almost pulls him off the ground, but he never backed down. And I just loved his attitude. I love Stock. Just absolutely loved it. But my as far as a skill player, I know a lot of people like this this recent bunch of Bruins, but I kind of grew up when they weren't winning Stanley Cups because they could just never get it done.
They only won one.
Yeah, but I like Jason Allison. I really liked him.
Oh.
Yeah, I did. I liked him growing up, and I thought he was cool. And then those teams were weird though. They were like strange teams, always like shifting around, but they were always like good enough to lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, to Montreal. Yeah,
to Montreal. Just my whole life, just getting absolutely annihilated. Those are my things. I loved it when they won the Stanley Cup. I feel that they have not lived up to expectations, so they should have won more.
No. I mean, outside the list of players of that generation of players that I would take in front of Patrice Bergeron is you could count him on probably 3 fingers. The guy was unbelievable. He just wasn't flashy, but he was unbelievable. Is well regarded and still horribly underrated in my mind. It is a shame that he only got one, but at least he got one.
Oh, he kept the window open probably 6 years longer than it should have been because he was just such a dominant defensive forward. And people don't realize how important that is. Like in hockey, it's just when you have a defensive center like that you can just take over. He would like cut the ice off in half.
Would win faceoffs, and that Stanley Cup run, they were putting him in just to take faceoffs and swap him out because he was winning everyone. It was unbelievable.
That team, he was playing like nonsensical minutes too. Just the minutes were just insane back then. So so hockey, just a little hockey talk. The Bruins are they just had a win the other day. They've been losing a little bit. This year is probably the worst year in like 20 years. So
it's terrible.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty bad.
It's terrible. They should be better than this. They did have a good overtime win against Florida the other day, though.
Yeah. Good for them.
Yeah, no, I follow them. I don't watch the games. I watch usually the recaps, like the 10-minute YouTube recap. But I watch them. I watch every one of them. I follow them pretty closely, but I just don't have 2.5 hours to. I just don't.
Yeah.
I just can't.
I'll be honest with you, all my sports consumption has gone to like reels. Like I watch clips.
Oh, not reels. I'll watch like the 10-minute. I watch all the Celtics too, but I watch it 10-minute recaps. Like I don't have 2 and 3 hours. Yeah.
But I don't have a TV either. I watch everything is on YouTube on my phone or on my computer at work. That's it. I don't what's the point of a television in today's day and age? I can just watch things on YouTube.
Yeah, really. So
we're done with sports, Lynn. We only do a little bit of sports, just a teeny bit.
1 hour 12.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
Last week by like 10 minutes.
Yeah. So we will. Do you have anything else? Otherwise,
no.
Let's get out of here. All right. Thank you for all who participated and watched.
Thanks for watching.
We will try and screw it up less next week. Until then, have a great week.